what's up guys? Tim Credeur from Gladiators Academy in Lafayette, and this is my friend, we call him a Pontiac, Dustin Pontiac. So that's not really his nickname, but it's a funny one. Dustin's fighting on the 24th. It should be a great fight. Comes from a wrestling background. How long did you wrestle?
About 5-6 years.
Wrestled in college a little bit, junior college, and came here to us about a year ago, right? Had a couple fights, grappling tournaments, and of course, he wears the gi. How'd you like the gi at first?
Hated it.
How about now?
I like it.
You like it better. It's still tough though, right?
At times.
When the purple belts, it's kind of tough, but getting better. So today, in our curriculum for our Road to Blue Belt this month, we're covering top control. And I say top control because that's a variety of positions, right? There's a variety of different side control positions. There's a variety of Kasakatami, north-south, just a lot of positions. So we cover a multitude of different top control positions. So what we're gonna do right now is show a little sequence that I use from crossbody, okay? All right, on your back, Dustin. Head this way. Yeah, let's keep a little closer. Okay, so we're gonna just do a little breakdown from crossbody, from cross-face side control. Usually that's where I start. I like to start in cross-face side control with my hip tight on the mat, my shoelaces on the mat, and I like to keep my head pretty heavy and I keep my foot up just to kind of exhaust my opponent. A lot of times you guys will hear the term invisible jiu-jitsu, right? It's kind of a new term. Invisible jiu-jitsu is nothing but the part of jiu-jitsu that you can't see, you have to feel. So this is a little example of that. See right here in this cross-face side control, you see my elbows are on the mat. And so to most people's eyes, there's nothing different here, right? But I'm gonna do something that's gonna make things very different. Only one person is gonna notice the difference really, but it's the only person that matters, and that's Dustin. So from here, what I'm gonna do is I lift my elbows off of the mat and pinch them together. Does that feel different, Dustin?
Yeah.
What about now? How do you feel?
Good.
Feels fine now. Okay, feels fine. But when I lift my elbows and I pinch them together, I pull him tight to me and I expose all of my weight to Dustin's upper body, and it restricts his diaphragm. Over time, 30, 45 seconds, my opponent gets weaker and my attacks get easier, okay? Now, from the outside looking in, you don't always notice the difference between this and this, but there's a huge difference for the person on bottom, okay? So from here, what we're gonna do is, after my opponent kind of gets a little bit crazy, we're gonna go to cross body, okay? So cross body, what I would do from here is, I pull my hand tight, my elbow over, and I come to this position where I have an arm isolated. I like this attack position because it offers me the opportunity to do some of my favorite submissions. Arm lock 7, Kimura, key locks, things like that. And once I get here and my opponent's hand's over my back, I can trap that in by grabbing my collar. I post my hand on the mat, take a couple inches back with my knees, and I bring my elbow inside his body. It's very tough for Dustin to free himself from here. And now I can work. I like arm lock 7. Arm lock 7 is I post my hand, step over, I spin, grab the belt, and I can finish the arm bar from here, right? Very common submission, very effective. We're gonna cover something different though. When I make this position, what happens a lot of times, as I post, bring my elbow in, and I start my arm lock 7, a lot of my guys kind of got hip to this because it's one of my favorite submissions, and they rotate their arm. When the rotation of the arm happens, of course, traditionally, I can attack the Kimura. And by what I mean by the Kimura is, I pinch my knees, and I begin switching my grip. I keep my body straight and erect, and I make my grips tight. I always like to make sure I grip tight at first to make sure I have full control of his shoulder and elbow, and then I can stand up and put pressure If he rolls to his back, which I prefer, I drop my elbow to the mat and finish with the alligator control Kimura. Another problem that happens when I attack the Kimura is a lot of times he gets his other hand free and he makes a grip, and I get here and I'm stuck, you know? Now, if I'm stronger than my opponent, if I'm bigger than my opponent, a lot of times I can easily kind of use my knee and break his grip. But sometimes guys are just, their grip is strong and it's tough. So if I get here and I feel my opponent blocking, even if I'm bigger or stronger, I don't really care. My concern is my jiu-jitsu better? So I'm gonna focus on attacking differently. We have a lot of judo guys here. I'm a judo black belt, and Coach Josh Artigue's a 4th degree black belt in judo. What we like to do is I feed my hand over his wrist, grabbing the belt. Now his hand is trapped. I take my thumb and I feed it to the collar ever so gently, right? I don't want to be too tough with my grip. I kind of prefer if he doesn't notice that much. Once my thumb gets in the collar, I'm gonna walk off to side mount, drop my eye over my hand, and finish with the choke. I'm gonna show that from another angle so you can see it from another way. So again, cross face side control, elbows off the mat, I'm tight. I let my opponent wear himself out. Once this happens, I'm over, and I'm tight here, okay? From this position, what we really want to do is make sure this arm stays tight up here in my shoulder. So I grab my elbow, I grab my collar, and I tuck my elbow tight. Then I'm gonna pop my elbow inside. Okay, let's rotate, Dustin. Once my elbow pops inside, now I can start to attack my arm lock 7, which if his arm stays straight, I grab the belt and finish. I use the belt so he can't escape with the hitchhiker escape. If, when I make this elbow position and start to come over, he bends his arm, of course, I go to the Kimura. Notice how I'm keeping my leg really tight so he cannot lock his hands together. Very tough. So it's easy for me to make my Kimura grip and pressure, right? I can pressure traditionally, or I can go all the way elbow to the mat and pressure. So the problem we have, or some of my students have, is they don't always trap the arm with this leg. And what happens is that arm pops out and we have a battle here. Sometimes that battle ends in them losing the position because sometimes they're too overzealous for the submission, I think. But from here, I'm going to feed my left hand over the top, grab his belt, and place it in my hand. And if you notice, I have a trapping grip here, right? I learned this actually in judo, but I've also seen it at a lot of good jiu-jitsu schools as well. Once I make this grip, my thumb feeds to the collar. I like to feed deep, not too deep, but deep enough. Okay? Deep enough to where my choking bones are near the carotid artery. Then I walk my knees away, drop my elbow towards the mat, and I always try to look at my hand like it's a periscope or like it's a what is that called? Is that not a periscope?
Telescope.
Telescope, right? Like try to look like I'm a pirate, like that. I look tight at my hand, because if my eye is above my hand, then I know my shoulder's directly over the middle of my forearm, where the pressure's going. So eye over, and I start dropping my hip. Yeah, and my opponent taps. Okay. Incredible submission, and it's a good sequence. So that's some of the stuff we're working on at Gladiators Academy. Top control. I use a variety of top control positions. Kesa, reverse Kesa. I use a lot of north-south. I use pressurized side control, cross-face side control, cross-body. And I think a good variety of positions that allow you to move through your opponent's defenses make for a better attacking system. I hope you enjoyed it. Please let us know if you have any questions. gladiatorsla.com. Thanks.